Hey guys, this is John from the Meatgistics Podcast, presented by Waltons. We have a very special episode today. We finally have some people to talk about alpha-gal. And these are not just some people. We've got some high-level researchers and professors from Kansas State University. We recently saw that they were going to start doing an extension lab on this, got very excited, reached out, and they were nice enough to give us some of their very, very valuable time. We've got Michael Chao, who is an associate professor. He has his BS from the University of California, Davis, MS from the same university, and his PhD from Lincoln, Nebraska. We're also joined by Yoon-Seng Park, who is one of the people who has been working on this the longest. Dr. Park has been working on alpha-gal for over 10 years. We also have Priscilla Brenes, and she is a nutritionist who also has her master's in public health and a doctoral degree in human nutrition from Kansas State University. So we're going to be talking all things alpha-gal today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves because I'm sure there's a lot more to them and how they got onto this insanely interesting topic. So we will let them introduce themselves, starting with you, Mr. Chao.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Chao. I'm a meat scientist by training, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Animal Science at Kansas State University. And really, I heard about alpha-gal about 4 or 5 years ago from the students in my classes. They started talking about they have family members, friends, and even some of the colleagues that I have in my department start telling me about, hey, I can't eat red meat anymore because I have this alpha-gal syndrome. That's really when I got really interested in it because as a meat scientist, if everybody stopped eating meat, I have more of a job security issue now. So that's why I started looking into what is the alpha-gal syndrome.
Hi, my name is Yoon-Sung Park in the Department of Entomology in Kansas State University. I have been working on AGS for last 10 years. And I started with the tick biology more, but now it is expanded to more AGS patient side as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Priscilla Brenes, and I'm an extension assistant professor in the Department of Food, Nutrition, Dietetics, and Health. And I'm also the nutrition state specialist for K-State Research and Extension. And when I was doing my graduate work many years ago, I heard about a student that had a red meat allergy, and she was severely allergic, but I didn't think much about that while I was in grad school until a couple years ago that Dr. Chao reached out, and also on the field, some of the extension agents reached out asking about education about AGS for people in their community, and that's how I got involved.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you very much. And I have questions specifically for all of you, but if anyone other than who I ask has an answer, please feel free to jump in. I tried to tailor these somewhat to your specialties, but I know that you guys all work closely together. So the first thing I would like to ask is, how does a Lone Star tick become a carrier of alpha-gal?
Yeah. So tick bite is a causal factor of this AGS. And indeed, Lone Star tick in our area is the major culprit. But this AGS itself is occurring in overall continent. I mean, not only in America, but also in Europe and Africa, India, Asia. So in that case, they do not have the Lone Star tick. And instead of Lone Star tick, some other ticks are the causal factor of that. So other tick bites. In our area, in North America, just apparently there are many other ticks distributed. What we can say surely is the Lone Star tick is the major causal factor of the AGS, but also some other tick is not completely excluded as a causal factor of AGS yet. So there is some possibility other tick might be also not good.
Oh no, I don't want to hear that. That scares me immensely. I was in my mind, this was just the Lone Star tick, and it was just in the United States, but it's also in Europe and Africa.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And we
And
don't.
Australia.
Yeah,
Well,
Australia
everything's
and
in Australia. Everything scary lives down there, so it makes sense
Mhm.
that it would be down there. That is shocking to me. So we really don't know why they're carriers of this.
So one of we scientists does not really fully understand what is the molecular nature of the causal factor and the mode of action of the sensitizing AGS patient. But what we know is this lone static saliva, which is secreted into the host while they are feeding on the host, is containing quite a large amount of alpha there. So that is the main causal factor. We believe that it is the causal factor of the AGS.
Okay. Now it is a carbohydrate that's in the meat that your body's reacting to.
Yeah, that is the carbohydrate. Some other easier term, sugar, very tiny sugar that is decorating every living organism surface. The cellular surface is decorated with sugar, with some different kind of sugars. And in the case of alpha-gal, one of many, many sugar is occurring all animal except human. Human and old world monkey. So somehow we have lost the enzyme that produces this particular sugar, and this the sugar decorating cell surface is very important in immune system because uh, our immune system is recognizing self and non-self mainly by using this sugar, different types of sugar. So human does not have this alcohol. So human immune system is recognizing this alcohol as a foreign material. So some good things also happen, or because human immune system can fight against this alcohol. Some of the pathogen contains this alcohol, so we can be resistant to those type of pathogen. But at the same time, one problem happens. Some different types of immune system is also being ready for being activated uh, against this alpha-gal. In that case, that happens for as an alpha-gal syndrome. Yeah.
Okay, which is our immune system basically reacting to the introduction of a carbohydrate or a type of sugar that our body's just not able to deal with anymore.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if I get bit by a Lone Star tick that it is a character or a carrier, what are the chances that I'm going to develop a reaction?
Yeah, so far, current statistics, but it may not be really accurate number.
Mhm.
Less than 10% of people who has been bitten by embryo, this lone static, can develop this AGS. So yeah, it's still you have 90% of chance not having this problem, but still highly 10% is going to be potentially causing this problem.
And while I would prefer to have a 0% chance, that's much better than the 100% chance that was in my mind. Like I thought if you got bit by one of these, that was it.
Yeah.
I was actually watching the live stream that the three of you did, and when I heard that, I breathed a huge sigh of relief. It really did take away a huge concern of mine, or at least tampered it down a little bit. Now I know Dr. Chao, you're working to try to get better numbers on infections specifically. What would you guys call this? Is this an infection? Is this an affliction?
This would be an allergic reaction.
Okay.
So you pretty much have to treat this just like any other allergies that are out there, except this one is reacting to any mammalian tissues from mammalian species. I guess allergy is just a very, very broad term, but it's really mammalian tissue in general.
And it's any mammalian?
Yes. So talking about beef, pork, lamb, venison, particularly for us outdoorsmen, um, you name it. But remember, we still can eat. I mean, people with alpha gal syndrome can still eat poultry product.
Right.
They still can eat seafood, but very, very, very specific to mammalian species.
Okay. And I did see that you had a survey going for a while at least. And I think there's another one coming up in April, I believe, of this month or of this year, if that's correct.
Interviews.
Interviews, right? I assume you're just looking to get more of an understanding of how many people out there currently have this allergy.
Yes. And I think Priscilla can talk a little bit about the surveys and interviews and currently what we have found, I guess.
Yes, so for the surveys, we mainly wanted to know the knowledge of the community on AGS. We wanted to know if they knew that it was transmitted by a tick. We wanted to know also if they are outdoor people, if they have pets. So we wanted to know several like aspects to kind of understand where they're coming from and what their challenges are. Because we also ask them about like if you have AGS, like do you look where do you look for resources? So that's the survey. And our interviews are more focused on understanding the challenges that they face, not only in the foods that they eat, but also, surrounding nutrition or
Sure.
food and what their challenges are like to acquire some of these foods or to relate or interact with other people, whether that is friends and family, or how they've dealt with somebody in their family or their whole family acquiring AGS.
Well, one of the questions that I heard somebody ask during your question and answer period was, what are the challenges going to be for somebody who has to change their diet and go after, um, try and get all of their nutritions now from a vegetarian slash vegan option? I mean, there's definitely increased in, or can be increase in cost, definitely increase in effort to track down and make sure that you're getting a complete meal 3 times a day. Is that something that's going to be included in your survey, your study?
Yeah, we want to know how they are coping with taking out so many food items from their diet. And one another question will be about what are the resources that they're using, because with our research we want to create any educational resources that they may need that they are not finding out there. So I am the consumer educator um, part of the research, so we focus on doing that education for our extension agents and for other people in the community that want to teach this content, but to help people in the community know where to acquire more protein, how to combine foods, different preparations that can help them, and also educate in the, yeah, it's mammalian tissue that you might need to take out of your diet. But there's also, like Dr. Chow mentioned, like poultry and eggs and fish that you can acquire a lot of these important nutrients.
I think it was Dr. Chow who was pointing out that there's also something, and I forget the name, carrageenan. It's in a red seaweed,
Carrageenan.
and that's in a lot of things.
It is. Carrageenan can be found in ice cream, can be found in processed meat product, can be found in a lot of things that require some level of thickener or binder. So you're absolutely right. It is very difficult to avoid that. However, I talked about in the listening session was that only about 1 to 2% of the alpha gal syndrome patients would actually react to carrageenan. So if we think about the number of people that got alpha gal syndrome from tick bites, and then 1 or 2% of that will react to carrageenan. So it's a very, very small percentage of people.
That's true. Not to belittle their what is going to be struggle or suffering,
Yeah.
but yes, luckily it looks like it's a very small portion. What does a reaction generally present itself as? Are we talking hives? I mean, can it be as severe as throat closing up, difficulty breathing?
Oh yeah. It has a huge range. Like a lot of people that I talk to are usually related to hives and gastrointestinal issue. And of course, there are cases that would have issues with breathing. And it's a huge range. Everyone is a little bit different. And I think also have to do with age as well and how your immune system responds to them.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of that, just one of the characteristics of this allergy is some levels of delay is one of the characteristics compared to other allergy symptoms. So when you have good dinner out, restaurant, just very often this comes a little bit delayed time, like in the midnight or something. Several hours later, you started to feel something hive and also itch or sometimes a stomach ache, and
Mhm.
depends on the patient. It's all vary in the symptom. And very often, these patients are heading to emergency room because of that, with anaphylactic response. Yeah.
And then they would obviously have some difficulty pointing to exactly what it was because it's been such a delayed reaction.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Okay, so say I have a reaction to something, I go to a doctor who luckily is read up on alpha gal and can identify it. Dr. Brenes, what is my first food change going to be?
Well, it all depends on their sensitivity because there's people that react to more of the organs, and we've seen it in the comments from these listening sessions we've been doing. Some people react to meat, some people react to meat and dairy, some other people don't react to dairy and they can eat dairy without any problem. So it depends. It's good to have a journal that people are documenting what they're eating and how they're feeling after, because that can give an indication of what are those groups of foods that are causing or maybe causing this reaction, especially because, as it was mentioned before, it takes a few hours to get some of these symptoms or reactions. So it's important to keep a journal. And when you go to the doctor, take your journal with you and say, like, tell the doctor what you ate, how you felt, because if we keep it just to our memory, it is hard to recall when we're at the doctor and the doctor is asking us questions. And the doctors have very limited time sometimes. They don't have, like a full 15 minutes or half an hour with that. So it's good to have a journal and just write those things down before you actually go to a medical appointment.
And sure, if I don't track my macros religiously or I'm writing things down, if you ask me at the end of the day what I ate, I would tell you I ate the healthiest all day long. I'd forget about those potato chips I ate. I'd forget about the little bit of ice cream I had. We've talked about that a lot of times. Studies based on people's diets, based on their memories, aren't really worth a ton because people lie to themselves and then also just on those forums. Um, all right. So, organ meats. This is a major carrier of alpha gal.
Yes, it seems like that there are, so by definition, allergy, alpha gal syndrome, people react to eating red meat. But there are twice the number of people of that that would react to organ meat. So those people can actually eat red meat and still be fine. But if they had like pork kidney or pork liver, for example, and then they have an allergic reaction. So this really kind of started our curiosity on, is it because different products contain different amount of alpha gal in there, and that's triggered some of the research that we're currently doing, which is focusing on creating a database of how much alpha gal is in different food products, not just meat, but also products that could contain trace amount of gelatin, for example, or dairy product. And so this way we have a database that maybe people in the future can just look up, okay, how much alpha gal is in there, and based on my sensitivity, maybe these are okay and this is not.
Can you talk about how you went about testing the levels of alpha gal in different products? Specifically, I'm interested in all of it, but I want to understand the difference between how you tested it in a raw product and a cooked product. Because I saw on your chart that you had raw pork and cooked pork, and the levels actually go up or appear to go up as you cook it.
Yeah. So traditionally, when we look at a food product, we think about the macronutrient, the carbohydrate, the protein, and the lipids, the fat. So when we are looking at alpha gal, which is a glycan, and this is a very specialized type of carbohydrate that can be on the protein as well as on the fat component of it. So when we are doing the quantification, what we're currently doing the traditional way is to extract the protein out of the food and the fat out of the food, and then utilize a method called Western blot, which is basically we put the protein on the membrane and then we put antibodies that can bind to the alpha gal on there. And then that antibody will bind to the alpha gal, and then that membrane that contains the protein or the fat will turn into different shades of grays. And then the darker the gray, it would have indicating that it has more alpha gal to it.
Okay, so
That's what we, yes, go ahead.
it's almost like it's not at all, but to dumb this down so that I can understand it. It's
Yeah,
almost like you're using a dye that just goes right to the alpha gal, and then
yes,
the level of blue it turns indicates how
yep.
much alpha gal is in there.
Yes, absolutely. And and so that's the traditional way of doing it. And then currently, in fact, Dr. Park and I have been working on a newer protocol that we're currently working on, is to really make it a almost like an express way of doing it, which we are simply just trying to put the food product mixed with some form of a stronger chemical like bleach, for example, and then use the bleach to actually cut down or remove the carbohydrate from these fat and protein, and then just simply dissolve them into this bleach solution that we have. And then we take a small portion of it and then put it in these plates that have these antibodies already on there. And then it will turn into different color, different shades of blue based on your earlier explanation. And of course, the darker the blue, it will have more of it. We wanted to do it a very express way versus the earlier way that I described could take like days to do.
Okay. One of the things that I also wanted to touch on or have you touch on, and I know you don't feel comfortable saying what you really think it is, but I think you have an idea, at least a suspicion. Two of the things that you tested that had lower levels of alpha gal were summer sausage and deli meat. Can you talk about, or was it deli
Bellingham.
ham? Maybe it was deli ham
Bellingham.
specifically. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So we tested 14 different meat products in our preliminary results. And most of the processed meat product, regardless of bratwurst, beef jerky, bacon, they all have very similar amount of alpha gal like normal cooked meat, like cooked beef or cooked pork. But like you said, we actually tested it multiple times because we just couldn't figure out why. But summer sausage, whenever we test the protein of summer sausage, they always have a lot less alpha gal. And so when I make summer sausage, I think about fermentation. And then I think about inoculating that lactic acid culture in there. And then you continuously monitor that pH drop to about 4.8 or so. And so it gives you that really tangy taste to it. So in my mind, I couldn't really quite figure out, is it because of the fermentation process that the microbe is removing the glycan, or is it just simply the drop of the pH from the lactic acid production that remove the glycan? And these deli ham that we're talking about are the Oscar Mayer one that you when you typically buy them from the grocery store, you open it up. They also taste a little bit tangy as well. And that's because they added citric acid to them to extend the shelf life. So at least my current hypothesis, nothing has been confirmed yet, but based on our hypothesis, I think that acidity at least has something that could reduce the alpha gal content in food products.
And for somebody who is sensitive to it, someone who's shown that they can have a reaction to it, even if it's a mild strength one, are they more likely to have a stronger reaction if they eat something like beef versus something like summer sausage, which has less? Does the amount of alpha gal you're taking in affect your reaction, is my question, I guess.
I think it depends on the sensitivity. Like we talked about, I personally really think it has something to do with the amount of alpha gal. But of course, there are people that would argue against that. But I personally believe that because, for example, pork kidney is a very good example of every time we run pork kidney samples through it, it has alpha gal level off the roof compared to beef or pork or fresh lamb, for example. So when we were just talking about twice the amount of people react to that versus the number of people reacting to red meat content. So I personally think it has to do with alpha gal content. And but in terms of severity to the reaction of it, I think it's probably more on depending on the person. And Dr. Park, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah. So far, currently, just what scientists know is this alpha gal containing lipid and alpha gal containing protein can be different component, and alpha gal containing lipid is the major causal factor because it permeates into the system more easily. So that's like we still do not have good evidences for to state like this, but so far we are more suspicious about glycolipid is the more harmful than glycoprotein
Okay.
itself.
And that would make some sense even to my layman's brain. I don't know who the best one to answer this question, or if you guys are even aware of it. I assume you are. About a year and a half ago, I think around that time, there started to come out some articles that pigs that were raised for human heart valve transplants, the meat in that didn't seem to create the reaction that regular red meat would be with somebody with the syndrome. What is the latest on that? Or I assume you guys are aware of it.
Yeah. So one of the company made like a 10 genes modified in a mini pig, and just in order to make the heart valve transplantation and also heart itself actually a potential usage. And they have their webpage actually, and they are working with AGS patient for providing some types of better version of bacon. Made of this transgenic pig, so that doesn't have alpha gal. And I have talked with one of a patient who had that experience, and she was definitely AGS patient, but she told me that that bacon was great for her, and she didn't have any reaction. Yeah.
Everybody should be allowed to eat bacon. It's a crime against human. Well, not everybody, religious purposes, obviously, aside. But yeah, if you're deprived of bacon after eating it for most of your life, that has got to be a very tough go of it.
Mm.
Dr. Brenes, if somebody does have this, they have their food journal. What would you say is a good? You don't have to give me meals, but a few things that they can eat that's going to give them all the nutrition that they need. I know red beans and rice has always been a big thing. It's supposed to have all the amino acids you need. Are there other things like that that people can use to replace this? And then I have a follow up to it.
Yeah, so just wanted to explain a little bit of background for that question. So animal products have something that we call like complete protein because they have like the nine essential amino acids. So like we have like 20 amino acids that our body needs to make different parts of our bodies, different enzymes. But there are nine that our bodies cannot produce from other building blocks from the foods we eat. So those are called like essential amino acids. And animal products, contain those nine essential amino acids. So like our bodies, don't have to make them if we eat them. But with plant foods, some plant foods or like most of the plant foods that have protein in them, they may miss some of these nine essential amino acids. So that's why, like you mentioned, like rice and beans, it's a staple. We combine them and we can get all of those nine essential amino acids in that combination, along with other amino acids and other uh, protein building blocks. Uh, but that's why sometimes, like plant protein, it's called like incomplete protein because they may miss some of one, two of these amino acids. So when you combine them, you get like that complete protein. But there are some plant foods that do have all the nine essential amino acids, like soy, and soy products. Um, Quinoa and buckwheat also have all the nine essential amino acids and nutritional yeast. Now there are not a lot of these plant products, so and they may not be staple in everybody's diet. Um, so that's why we recommend that you combine grains with legumes to get all those nine essential amino acids. But if somebody, gets recently diagnosed with AGS, they have their food journal, and let's say that they can eat poultry and fish, that's part of their diet. They can also get, the protein that they need from those other food groups. But if they don't eat those other, food groups like poultry or eggs and fish because of other conditions or other preferences, then it is important to understand what other, not only protein, but what other nutrients they are in those foods that they're taking out and where they go to acquire those nutrients or vitamins. So, for example, if we talk about iron, iron is very important to, for our blood to carry oxygen and to prevent anemia, and especially in women because they need more during women's reproductive years. They need more iron in their diet than somebody that's not menstruating. So it becomes like crucial to get that iron, and the iron that's in plant foods is not as easily absorbed by the body than the iron that is in animal products. So how can we, it's important to get people the education on how can we increase the bioavailability of iron in these plant foods, whether that is by soaking or fermenting them or adding citrus fruits or vegetables that add vitamin C so that this iron can be absorbed more easily by the body. So it all depends on how much foods or food groups people are taking out of their diet because that then will tell us what will be critical nutrients that they need to be aware of that they need to acquire from other plant sources.
So I don't know if it was just obvious where I was going, but you answered my follow up as well. I was going to ask about bioavailability, and I was going to use iron as my example. I'm not all the way up on bioavailability. Is that just for things like iron, or are there also is there some difficulty with the 9 essential amino acids?
Um, I'm not exactly
Okay.
sure on that. And like the other two professors might know, but I'm not exactly sure. Like our main concern will be like the iron and calcium interaction with that and how that absorbs in the body. Now it's important that like with protein there is so much protein that we can absorb at once. So some people might think like, oh, I'm gonna eat 100 grams of protein in just one meal, which is a lot. I want to say it's a lot to for that for just one meal, but our bodies cannot absorb like all at once. So it is better to distribute the protein that we need for our bodies throughout the day so that the body has time to absorb it properly. Um, so yeah, that's on like the protein side.
Okay, thank you very much for answering that. I guess question is for anyone. When this first came out, or when I first started reading about it, there wasn't a lot of evidence that there was a recovery for some people. After watching your question and answer session, and now looks like for a good portion, I think it was 80% of people, if they don't get bit again within a 5 year period, they should start to recover. Is that accurate?
That's what we've been seeing, at least from the literature, is that their antibody level, IgE level against the alpha gal will start decreasing. And that is usually an indicator that they're less reactive to it. And obviously, it's not everyone will get to experience that, but at least about 80% of the people, if they don't get that additional boost to from the tick bite, they should see a trend like that.
Okay, for somebody who lives in an area where there are Lone Star ticks and spends a lot of time outdoors and has two rather large dogs that like to go walking through tall grass into trees, what are some things I can do to protect myself?
Dr. Park can probably add on to this, but when I was talking about one thing that a lot of people didn't pay attention to is that these ticks they will crawl around on you sometimes even for hours before they actually attach to you. And one of the number one thing that I learned, I'm an outdoorsman myself. I turkey hunt, I mushroom hunt, and one thing I have learned is I will strip myself naked before I get inside the house. And then I will ask my wife to look through my entire body to search to see if there's any ticks crawling on me, and all my shirt and pants immediately go into the washer.
Yeah, I think Dr. Chao said exactly just the things what entomologists would recommend. So, as an entomologist, we work on how to prevent tick bites by kind of overall reducing tick populations and also personal protective gears. But actually, overall tick population is very much depends on the animal distribution. So when we have more mouse and also more bird as well as deers out there, there is no other way of really uh, reducing this population so far.
So
So
we're sorry, in general, my understanding is that more deer, the higher tick population you're going to have. Correct.
exactly, yeah,
As far as from what I've heard, possum is an animal that does tend to eat
yeah,
a good amount of ticks.
yeah. Possum is also the things, and also we don't really see this mouse population very much, but just based on the study, mouse population is one of the major factor that really governs this tick population size. So when you have 1 year of having high mouse population, then next year you're gonna have much larger numbers of ticks.
So
Of
the mouse is actually a carrier for the tick. It doesn't eat the tick.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. So especially the larval tick, when tick is very small, the seed tick is utilizing mouse as the host. So that's one of the big region of the population density of tick out there.
Okay. And Dr. Chow, you said you were a wild turkey hunter. Have you ever pulled a bunch of ticks off a wild turkey?
Um, I have seen ticks on wild turkey, but honestly, I've never examined them, and I don't believe you would find Lone Star tick on wild turkey. Dr. Park, am I right?
But yeah, I don't know exactly the wild turkey, but bird is one of a really good alternative host for tick. So the flying bird is the carrier of this tick, and also potentially with the tick pathogen. The pathogen carried by tick is together. So
So I came from to Kansas from upstate New York, and there we worried about Lyme disease and ticks. And here, I'm obviously worried about the alpha gal. Interestingly enough, I'm more worried about the alpha gal than the Lyme disease, which is probably not the correct way to be. But my job and my lifestyle would be very negatively affected if I couldn't eat red meat for a while.
Yes.
Is there a spray? Is there anything that you like to put on before you go out into the field that you feel like might give you a better chance of keeping the ticks off you or making them leave as soon as they interact with it?
yeah, definitely. Just the outdoor activity is supposed to be with protection of yourself by using DEET. So DEET, probably 10% DEET or higher would be the best. And also nowadays, many cases they have DEET plus pyrethroid or permethrin, which is one of the insecticide, but it lasts very short. So uh, at the time, just before you go out, just that you spray that, and that toxicity to human is very minimal.
Okay.
So that has been highly recommended so far. Yeah.
One of the things that we've started doing here very recently is rendering kidney fat from beef for tallow. We're doing it for numerous reasons. Obviously, it's great to cook with, but one of the employees here is great at making skincare products with it. What do you think there would be a reaction from somebody with alpha gal syndrome if they used a beef tallow skincare product?
Oh yeah. We met somebody from one of our in-person listening session, talked about she reacts to cosmetic product that even just contain a small amount of saturated fat that from mammalian source. So if she has something that's from beef tallow, absolutely. But again, I think it is person to person. She's obviously a very sensitive type, but then there may be some that their skin doesn't react to them, but some definitely do.
But if they ingested it, they would have reaction to it. Okay.
Yes.
So that makes sense. It's along with everything else, some people are going to have stronger reactions than others. I have a brother-in-law who is very allergic to shellfish to the point where we no longer even try and cook anything when he's going to be in the house in the next 24 hours because he will have a reaction to it. And he's a very stubborn man who does not want an EpiPen. So he will go basically hide and eat some Benadryl until his hives go away. And we haven't seen him in a couple hours. Someone's like, Mark is having a reaction and trying to hide it so he doesn't have to go to the hospital. But I did hear you guys talk about a story where somebody was having a reaction or says they had a reaction to the cooking of meat around them. Is there any evidence beyond just anecdotal for that being an issue?
Dr. Park, do you have
Yeah,
any?
I mean, just those vaporized alcohol. So just while you are cooking, just the like smell, basically smell is the part of vaporized food, and that can definitely cause the problem also, uh, especially for highly sensitive people. And many other cases, just some of the food sources that is supposed to be completely free from alcohol can be contaminated. So, for example, if you eat some of those chicken meat, it should be clean from alcohol, but definitely some of contamination can happen, especially when you use the pan used for steak can be also used without clean wash, and that is going to be the contamination source. So not only that, just like I've heard of all like a very unlikely food that contains alcohol has been the causal factor. And in that case, only what we can think of is some levels of contamination. So very highly sensitive AGS patient can suffer due to that. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about the story of somebody cooking hamburger in their backyard and then somebody breathing the fume of it and have a reaction. And just think about that you can have a smoked turkey, but you use the same smoker that smoked the brisket and the ribs with it to smoke that turkey. And then some of that vaporized lipid and volatile compound can easily transfer from the other food item onto the turkey. So it's very difficult.
Yeah, and horrifying. One of the things my boss told me is she didn't want everyone walking away from this conversation being scared of it, but man, it is a scary proposition. I'm very glad that there are people out there working on how to address it and hopefully at some point a cure. And one of the things I did want to point out is this is becoming more prevalent. It seems like more and more people know somebody who has it or know somebody who knows somebody who has it. And I actually found an article, I think yesterday or the day before, where a restaurant in Missouri is going to start having alpha gal sensitive menus one night a week. So it's a big enough problem that they're actually marketing to these people now saying, hey, if you want to come out and have a meal and you have alpha gal syndrome, we've got you covered one night a week. So it is definitely something that seems to be on the increase. You guys have formed your research group. Is that what research extension? Do you have any idea or plans on how long this is going to go for?
Our current research project?
Mhm.
Yes. So this is a 2-year research project that's funded by actually the Kansas government. So which is why our work is really limited to within the border of Kansas. So just to talk a little bit about it is that our first and second objective right now are these surveys and interviews documenting the prevalence of alpha gal syndrome in the state of Kansas, knowing their challenges, as well as in their interviews, we want to learn about the societal challenges of people with alpha gal syndrome. And then the second part of this research is focusing on quantifying, creating this database, like I talked about earlier, of different food items, of what is the alpha gal content of them. And then the final step of it is Dr. Park actually has some mice that are alpha gal knocked out mice, which means that their alpha gal has been removed, just like the pigs you were talking about.
Mhm.
And we're going to use them as human models. So we're actually injecting tick saliva into them to make them get alpha gal syndrome and then feed them these different food items that we quantified how much alpha gal is in there to and then draw their blood to measure what is their reaction when they ate, for example, ate bacon or ate summer sausage or ate steak. So this way we know have a better understanding of the relationship of eating a certain amount of alpha gal and what is their response to it.
Right.
And yeah, this we definitely have future projects that are in the planning, and we definitely wish to continue to work on this topic.
Yeah, adding on it, just like what Dr. Chao said, this is a 2 year global food system funding, and we are in the first year, middle of the first year. And actually, I'm excited to have these activities because this is the activities more on kind of client-driven research by identifying the key challenges in AGS, while previous my work has been more like a more basic science part of AGS. So I hope our this survey as well as identifying those AGS challenges can lead us to something not only us, but also overall scientists who work on AGS can be setting better direction of the research, like a clear client-driven better research we can set. So yeah, we are really excited for that, and we are continuously putting some effort for funding proposal to federal grant. So USDA is one of the grant agent that we are trying to get some funding from for continuing this project. Yeah.
Well, I think it was Dr. Chao who said at the beginning, meat scientists learned about this. Well, we better try and get ahead of this so that I can keep being a meat scientist. Us at Walton's, we sell meat processing supplies and equipment. We're also concerned with this. So certainly hope you get all the federal funding you would need when, or you get federal funding when your 2 year Kansas research is done. Have to ask it. I from everything I see, there's no news on this, but any chance, is there anything that you think has some potential for a cure for this?
Dr. Park, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Uh,
You want to hold on to?
yeah, you can start first. Yeah,
I
I'll follow up. Yeah.
no. So we 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 put in a proposal. In fact, Dr. Park put it in a proposal. We are just copyized on there with USDA, and he proposed that we can maybe use a similar concept like lactose intolerance, and then you eat lactase, and since alpha gal syndrome is a galactose allergic reaction, could we possibly use enzymes like galactase to reduce if its effect? So that is something that he has proposed, and then hopefully, if we can get the funding, it would be the next big thing that we'll be testing.
Yeah, so just adding that, just Dr. Chao explained it very well. So we are uh, trying to develop some way of combating against this problem. So, like what Dr. Chao said, enzyme can be utilized as a pill or something pre-treatment of dairy product to reduce or eliminate the alcohol there. So that is one of the effort. But also, uh, as a team, we are putting more effort on like more information source available to our patient, AGS patients, such as the database for alpha content of food item and also cosmetic item based on our experiment. So we are experimentally detecting the amount of minute, very sensitive assay can be detecting minute amount of those alcohol in all different products. We are going to try to develop some database that lists those things. So some patient can be uh, having better choice of the product in that case.
Well, thank you very much. You guys have been very generous with your time and you've answered all my questions. Is there anything you guys want to talk about as far as upcoming research projects? When you have that survey ready to go, if you need more people to take it, I would be more than happy to take that, and we could try to get around a few other people as well.
Okay. That would be very helpful because we kind of run into a little situation with the survey lately. Priscilla, do you want to talk a little bit about that? What you found?
Well, after our listening session on February 4th, we got a surge of a lot of responses. But as we were looking through them, uh, and the responses for some of the answers, we think they were like chatbots or AI that were answering the surveys. So right now we are trying to figure our next steps on how to proceed with the survey because we do want to capture, um, the answers of people in Kansas because some of those answers were from outside Kansas, and we want to know, that they're real people answering the survey, not AI or chatbot.
Well, we do
Yeah.
have a community of home meat processors. We have a website called Meatgistics, which is the name of this podcast. We'd be happy to post the link there, and I'm sure a bunch of Kansans would give you real responses and not chatbots and AI. AI is a wonderful thing, but it also can gum up the works from time to time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. So again, is there anything else you guys want to talk about as far as letting people know what you'll be doing? If not, I'd just really like to thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. We really enjoyed it. It was fun chatting with you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Really appreciate your guys' time. And we will look for that link for the survey and we'll post it to Meatgistics and try and get some Kansans to take it.
Okay.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for checking out the Meatgistics Podcast. To shop everything but the meat, head on over to waltons.com. To get your meat processing questions answered by experts and enthusiasts alike, head on over to our online community at meatgistics.com. Waltons, everything but the meat.